In this video, you find me with the all-new 2022 Hyundai IONIQ 5. This one is a limited model, so it comes packed with all of the bells and whistles. It also comes equipped with all-wheel drive capability, which means that this is packing 2 electric motors. With delivery, this one comes out to $55,920. And in this video, I'll give you my likes and dislikes about this all-new EV so that you have a better idea before you buy. And if you learn anything new while watching this or have any feedback, make sure to leave a comment down below. And if you like this style of video review, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell to see more videos like this one. I'll give you my summary up front first. The IONIQ 5 is a quirky looking EV. It is a blast to drive, whether slowly or quickly, and also that dual motor setup is worth it for the added performance and all-wheel drive capability, albeit at the expense of range. And then finally, the interior, it's really unique. Let's begin with the styling first, because the IONIQ 5 is a head-turning EV. I think it looks strange because it resembles a plain hatchback that's been scaled up by an extra 25%. There's a low resolution, low polygon count design motif to the whole thing, and I think it looks like a mashup between a Cybertruck and a Golf GTI. From a distance, it may look like a small car, but it's actually quite big, and you'll see this later once we jump inside. Now, starting at the front, the headlights look like it's inspired by a car made out of Lego bricks. It also looks like anamorphic art, where the look changes depending on your perspective. Because when you look at it head on, it has a more typical daytime running light shape, but when you move to the side, the design shifts to something else. And just to add to the overall lighting effect, this entire section of the bumper also lights up and emits a lot of light, making this car stand out from everything else at night. There's also no actual grille on the IONIQ 5 because it has no engine or radiators that require cooling. However, there's an active air flap that will open up to help cool the electric motors when needed. And when you don't, the flaps will close and it gives the overall car a more aerodynamic shape. The side also reflects the IONIQ 5's desire to be as aerodynamic as possible. The door handles are recessed to make it more slippery while in motion. These massive 20-inch wheels purposefully have a flat design with minimal openings to reduce turbulence in the air. And then the sharp creased lines on the wheel arches and the doors may or may not help with the aero, but it certainly helps this IONIQ 5 look like origami, so it can stand out from everything else on the market right now. And finally, at the rear, the pixel-inspired taillights are pretty cool. The brake lights, reverse, and blinkers are all integrated in this array of LEDs. You don't know what color is what until it actually lights up, and I think this design choice makes the IONIQ 5 look retro, but futuristic at the same time. Jump inside, and the IONIQ 5 replicates the simplicity of the exterior. Most noticeable here are the dual 12.3-inch displays. The infotainment screen is a touchscreen and the fully digital instrument cluster isn't. The infotainment is a reskin version of the one you can find in Hyundais. And since range anxiety is a real thing in any EV that you drive, that range information is front and center. Right below that, the stereo and HVAC controls are concentrated in the center. I like that there's still a volume dial in here. The HVAC buttons are touch sensitive, which works pretty well. However, the heated and ventilated seat controls, as well as the heated steering wheel functions, are hidden within the submenus of the infotainment system, so not as convenient. The steering wheel is another odd design. The materials on the turnstocks are strangely high quality feeling, which I can't really say the same for the rest of the car surfaces. The shifter is located on the steering column, which is another throwback to older cars, and the place where you would normally find the brand's logo, instead you find 4 dots. Now, why 4 dots? Well, engineers and designers can be nerds sometimes, and anytime you see a series of dots or dashes, chances are there's a Morse code equivalent to it. And lo and behold, 4 dots in International Morse code means the letter H. So that's a pretty cool Easter egg, Hyundai. I think you beat Honda to the punch. Also in the steering wheel, you'll find paddle shifters, but instead of changing the non-existent gears, this changes the level of regenerative braking. And then there's a round button on here which controls the different driving modes. There's normal, eco, and sport. And that changes the driving dynamics so that the regen braking and the throttle response will be somewhat different. In sport mode, it's going to feel a bit more eager when it comes to acceleration, and in eco mode, that's going to allow you to coast more, so sacrificing some regen braking in order to maintain vehicle speed. And in this car, there's 4 levels of regenerative braking. There might actually be more depending on your driving modes, but it changes between level 0, 1, 2, and 3. If you're just now getting into EVs, then level 0 and level 1 is going to closely emulate the driving behavior of a normal internal combustion engine car. As you increase the level of regen braking into level 2 and 3, that's where you can actually do some one-pedal driving, where you don't even actually have to touch the brakes until you come to a complete stop. Looking straight ahead, the 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster shows a very different speedometer and energy consumption gauges. And if you look further up, there's a heads-up display, and this one is more special because this has augmented reality, which means that if you're on the highway and you've got your cruise control set up, and the car in front of you is a little bit too close, it can actually show you, or it'll underline the car using the augmented reality. But it's just one way to show that the IONIQ 5 recognizes that there's a car in front of you. Is it cool? Yeah. Is it useful? Not really. In addition, there's a bunch of these odd, non-traditional car features that I absolutely love about the IONIQ 5. For example, the center console can slide back and forth. I like that if you have some large items in here, you can actually use this as a clamp to secure it in the forward position. I like that the driver's seat can fully recline, and there's also a leg rest that will pop up if you need it, because Hyundai knows that you're most likely going to be waiting in here at a charging station for about 20 to 30 minutes, so that's a good power nap length. And finally, there's this panel on the left-hand side of the instrument cluster that may look like a speaker, but it isn't. There's a ferrous metal plate behind it, so if you have some magnets, you can stick stuff on it. What a great way to personalize your car, but sadly, my iPhone with MagSafe will not stick on that plate. And if you look up, since this is a limited model, there's a beautiful tinted glass pane. And since this doesn't open, you don't have a partition along the middle, unlike panoramic roofs. So this is less functional, but it's also more beautiful because you have an uninterrupted view of the sky. And if you don't want to see the sky, the shade closes in a typical odd IONIQ 5 fashion. Other nice additions in this IONIQ 5 interior are the generous amount of ambient lighting. There's plenty of custom colors to choose from, and I like how the second row also gets lit up as much as the first row. There's also a ton of legroom in the second row. This being built on a completely new electric global modular platform, which is also shared with the Kia EV6 and the Genesis GV60, means that this doesn't have to share any of the same underpinnings as another car with internal combustion engines. So they can push the axles out as far as they can, and since there's no actual drive shaft or transmission tunnel going down the middle, just a big array of batteries underneath, the floor is completely flat. Therefore, the rear legroom is very generous at 39.4 inches. Cargo capacity is 27.2 cubic feet with the second row in the up position, and that grows to 59.3 cubic feet with the second row folded down. There's also some storage compartment under the hood or the frunk, but it's pretty small at 0.85 cubic feet, good enough to store your charging cable if you want to. And when it comes to charging, there's nothing quirky about the IONIQ 5. Actually, it's a pretty serious one because it charges super fast. This new electric platform supports both 400 and 800 volt charging systems, which means that you can fully take advantage of the fastest available chargers now, which is up to 350 kilowatts. There's not a lot of these 350 kilowatt stations just yet, but if you can find one, Hyundai claims that you can go from 10% to 80% charge in about 18 minutes. If you don't have access to a 350 kilowatt charger and maybe have access to a 150 kilowatt charger, and there's a lot of those right now, you can go from 10% to 80% in about 25 minutes. This is faster than a lot of EVs out there. This is a nice trend that we're seeing because charging is becoming faster and faster. And in the end, it's really all about time, isn't it? Now, if time doesn't matter as much and you have a level 2 charger at home, the IONIQ 5 also charges faster than other EVs. Again, not that it matters because you're charging overnight. According to Hyundai, it takes 6 hours and 43 minutes to go from 10 to 100%. For comparison, that's about 2.5 hours faster than something like the Hyundai Kona EV, or about 1 hour faster than a Volkswagen ID.4. As for range, it's also pretty good in the IONIQ 5. This being the all-wheel drive model, it has 2 electric motors, so therefore the range is an estimated 256 miles. If you want the performance or the all-wheel drive capability, the dual motor option is nice. The front electric motor is 74 kilowatts, while the rear is 165 kilowatts. Altogether, it makes an equivalent 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. That is serious sports car territory. And even though the IONIQ 5 is a really dense car with a curb weight of 4,600 pounds, it's still pretty quick. It goes 0 to 60 in about 5.2 seconds. As for the ride quality, it is superb. There's very little noise and vibration. There's no metal engine components spinning at thousands of RPMs. So the only sources affecting the ride quality is the road and the wind. And for that, the suspension works pretty well to soak up the bumps, and road and wind noise isn't too bad at all. And in fact, you may have a hard time judging how fast you're going purely by feel and sound, because the experience is pretty much the same whether you're going 30 miles per hour or 70 miles per hour. In the handling department, the IONIQ 5 is pretty fantastic. Just like most EVs, almost all of the weight of the car is right below your feet, so the center of gravity is lower to the ground. This electric platform also pushed the big 255mm tires out to the 4 corners, so the level of grip is great and the amount of body roll is minimal. Now, which model should you get? Because it ranges from $40,000 all the way to this model, which is $55,000 before delivery. The cheapest IONIQ 5 comes with a standard range of 220 miles. It has a smaller electric motor for the rear wheels and a smaller 58 kilowatt hour battery. The SE, SEL, or limited rear-wheel drive model will net you the longest range of 303 miles with a single 168 kilowatt or 225 horsepower motor. But because it's a single motor, it's going to have a slower 0 to 60 time. So if you need the performance or the all-wheel drive capability, then this limited all-wheel drive will make a lot of sense. Now, if you don't want the nice glass roof or the augmented reality heads-up display, then the SE or the SEL models will save you a little bit more money. Overall, this IONIQ 5 is a great EV. I had a great time driving this for the week. The driving experience is a blast. The design is bold, unique, and strangely delightful. It's not a cheap EV, but with the way gas prices are going now, the case for electric cars is changing. Well, there you have it. That's my review of the 2022 Hyundai IONIQ 5. I want to thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. If you've learned something, please consider hitting that like, subscribe, and that notification bell button so that you can be notified anytime we make a new video. I'll wrap it up right there. My name's Hanson, and this has been the 2022 Hyundai IONIQ 5, and I'll see you in the next one.